Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video is going to be a continuation of our previous video where we were discussing about building login control. If you have not watched that video, please do go to the channel and see that video first. I will start with a debug to see where we were first. Okay, here we are. So in the previous one, whatever we did, we had a couple of minor issues. Like if you could see, there was a border here, and the header was not properly hiding up, even though we set the header, and those issues were there. And now that those minor things are all now fixed in Haley directly, so I will update the versions. Okay, there we go now, but we could see that now the borders are all gone, and it is now totally occupying the proper space. Let us try to do something here. If you are not able to see this clearly, uh, hover color is here, which is crimson, but the default color is not set yet. I can't default, I'm sorry, the default color is equal to white. So this is now white, that's fine. And previously hide header was like this. If you set false, it will updated, it will be updated directly. So you know that this works. And the title, if you give, it is updating here. But let's remove the title and hide the header is true. But the button doesn't go away, so it's still there. That's a nice thing now. And okay, so this is one minor update, so that we have now the border. uh, if we have the margin is here and border radius, so border thickness, so let me set those two values as well. For clear understanding, I will open up a notepad and keep this notepad behind, so that yeah, so that my screen is like this, so I could see what's happening. This color, I will make it probably black, or okay, that's fine. But the problem here is, if mine is black, then in the black it doesn't show up. So I need to come up with a better solution. But at present, I believe that is fine. I will keep it at just black, and then uh, let's see, margin. If I change margin, and there is a margin, but we don't need margin here, 0. And we don't need border thickness as well, so border thickness is equal to 0. So you could maybe you noticed it, okay, if you pay close attention, by default there is a one border, so there was some kind of a mild shadow here, but if I remove that, it'll be clear like this. So but I will just keep it at 1, so that I will have some kind of a shadow. Okay, there we go. This is it. We now have our application set up properly. The next thing that I wish to explain in this video is about animation. So the next thing that I'm going to do is small animation. When do we need to do this animation? So, or where do we need to do this animation? First, I will start with this login page. Whenever the login page shows up, I'm going to show some kind of an animation. There are different ways how we can do animations. The most easiest approach, or like the definition of easy could be varying from person to person. But if you are already familiar with Adobe After Effects, or Premiere, or some kind of animation before, then I would suggest you to take a look at View, Design in Blend. So this will give you kind of like a timeliner where you can record the keystrokes, and you can animate it just exactly like Adobe Premiere Pro, where you will be doing it. I will just open it up to show how it is. This will open up another window, which will be much like Visual Studio. It will say Design and Blend. I think we opened it. Okay, it's opening up. So when you open up your blend, you can find the difference here. When you go to help, you can see that even visually you can find the difference. This will be much darker and you'll have some kind of a glow, and but when you go into help, you will find that this is Microsoft Blend for Visual Studio, and this you say this is just Visual Studio. And not only that, whenever you open up some kind of a project in Blender, you'll also see the object timelines, and the whole setup will be totally different. If you already have some experience with the Premiere or Adobe After Effects or some other kind of an animation editor, you will already know how these things work. So and one more important note is that the login control solution, whichever we already have in our local directory, both Visual Studio and the Blend are now targeting the same file, which means that you make some modifications here and then you save it, and then you go back to Visual Studio, it will say that something has modified, do you want to reload it? Or maybe at times the reload might not even be required, it will be automatically synchronized. Anyhow, so what I'm going to do now, if you go to the solution explorer, you have so many things and you have the object timelines. That's all fine. The way how animation works is you need some kind of a trigger, like when the application is opening, when the application is closing, when visibility is changing, some kind of a property or a value that is changing. So you need to first make the trigger, and then you say like, okay, whenever such trigger happens, I need to load this animation. So that's the base idea here. Why are we seeing blend now is that so that we know how it works, and then I will go into directly writing the code. So this is just for you to when you are starting up, you can always open blend to do this. Go to triggers, the solution triggers. If you don't find it, go to view and then open up triggers window. It should be there, but in case you closed it, go to view, triggers window. The trigger, what is a trigger? Create a new trigger, and the trigger is this is an user control, obviously. So when the user control is loaded, you still have so many triggers, like when the mouse enters or when double click happens, when drag and drop, so many triggers are there. Basically these are all the events, but we always do with loaded event. So whenever this is loaded, I need some animation to happen. Currently we didn't add any animation, so when you do this, it will say that it is empty, so no storyboard exists. So storyboard, you go to objects and timelines, just like before. If you do not find objects and timelines, go to other windows, or maybe uh, it should be here somewhere. So I close this one, so this is present in document outline. So it's closed and it is present in document outline. That's totally fine. So we have the triggers here, and then it says the storyboard is not available. So first storyboard, let us add a storyboard. Press this, and let's say loaded animation. You can name whatever you want. Now what happens is whenever the animation is loaded, you see there is a play symbol here. It will play some kind of an animation. So this is a keyframe based animation, which means that you will say like, at a given point of time, what is my property value? For instance, whatever I see on screen, this is my final value. So at the end of my animation, this is what I need. So I will say like, let the animation run for 1.5 seconds. At the end of my animation, my grid should be whatever the properties or values are here should be exactly the same. At the beginning of my animation, for my specific grid, I'm going to see the grid is being selected here. I will just move my grid away, and you see when I move, it is moving somewhere, right? So when I start moving, I press my shift. What happens to shift? It will move in whatever direction. It's like a horizontal direction. So I press okay, so let me zoom out here and zoom in. Where is my zoom in? Here. I don't know how am I able to zoom. It's okay. So what I have said done here is at 1.5 second I added this keyframe stroke, this button. So this button I pressed, and then at 1.5 seconds this keystroke is created. And then again I moved my, I just selected and moved it back. And at 0 seconds, what I did, instead of pressing this, I first moved my selected and moved my grid, so that what happened, the current state is captured. So now this capture is done. Let us see how it goes. Let's play. You see, this is how it moves. So what happened is, we already know where we want to go. We know the destination. That's the reason why at 1.5 seconds we move. Now you can select this like this. Just drag and drop. Sorry, drag and select, and then select and move it back to 1 second. So now what happens? I say like, so it's very fast now. So this is one way of doing things, but this, now what we did is we just transformed. If we go down, we just transformed x and y values. So not only this, you can do anything you want. You can play with the opacity, you can play with anything, but currently let us focus on getting this one right, and then we'll move. I'm going to save this now, go up, and let us minimize it here and go back to Visual Studio. So I minimized it, and automatically the frames are here. Now let us see what we have here. Let me open XAML. Okay, so what we have here is the loaded animation is here. Animation is targeting something, so it is targeting directly the transformer. And what happens is the transform has several children, and the third children, because we did not specify any kind of name, like, the transform group might contain several transform, like scale transform, rotate transform, or translate transform. We just said like there are some kind of a children, and the third children is what I need, and then the transformation x. So you will see some kind of like the values like this when you are directly dealing with the blend. So the x value at the beginning of the frame is at minus 883.2. So let us say 880, and at 1 second it should be to 0. Okay, that's fine. Y value we did not change, but it automatically got, we were not perfect. So the Y direction got moved. So let me remove it, cut and remove. So we have a storyboard animation here. Okay, that is totally fine. And then when we go down here, for the user control we have a trigger. So basically whenever the framework element or the user control is loaded, we are beginning this loaded animation. Now what we are going to do, we are going to do the same, but this time I'm going to copy paste and do it directly. So this one is called as, instead of loaded animation, this is unloaded animation. Sign up page, cancel. Mhm. It was not unloaded at all, right? We are not unloading at all. So that's the reason why we are not seeing it. So let me go to need help, go back to login page. It's very slow, first of all, to begin with. First let us fix that one. We don't need 1 second for that. We need a 0.5 seconds. So that's how we do the basic animation. So we know that it is loading here, and we need to do the same kind of animation for all the views, so that whenever you open up another view, that does the same. But here we have one more problem. We not only need this item, we also need the whole border as well to be doing it. So here we are adding some kind of transform group, children, blah 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 blah. So let me get down to business here, login page. Let me set a name for my border. X name is border main, or let's say border overall. Save this and go up the storyboard target property, and then you also have something called storyboard dot target name. So this time I'm going to say directly for this border overall, and let us remove all these transform group or whatever it is. So we do have the target name. Let us remove this target name. So for the border overall, we are going to take the render property, and we are taking the transform x. Okay, that is fine. This is now our loaded animation. Okay, and for the unloaded animation we do the same, but before we do the unloaded animation, let us keep it here. And this time we are going to do it for border overall, which is this one, border overall. And for border overall, we are taking the UA element and then we are transforming it. This should fail because we need to transform a group, but let us see whether we are transforming the group or only the element alone. Unloaded animation. Ah, come on. That's why. Okay. We help login page. Help login page. Nothing happened. Let us save this and go to blend S2 all, load all, and see what's the animation status here. So this is okay. This is not showing up here. But let's take loaded animation from here and see. Aha. So border overall, we are transforming the X. So what I see here is, even though we have added or modified this properties, we need one more important thing. We are saying that the UA elements render transform, which means like for this border overalls render transform, get the x-axis and then modify the values like this. But the problem here, let me zoom in and move this back a little bit. Okay. When we say that our border overall has a render transform, and we go down here, we see there is no render transform. Only for the grid we have the render transform, and render transform also needs an origin. So when you say 0, if you want to understand what is 0 0.5, 0 0.5, it is nothing but your center point. How do we know that? Let me show something. Okay, just imagine that you have, let me delete this and open up a whiteboard. Okay, imagine that you have any kind of an object, and in the top point here, this is your 0, this is your 1, and this is your 1, and this is your 0. This is your 1. So this is 1 comma 1, this is 0 comma 1, and this is 1 comma 0. So what happens here, the center point is 0.5, and here this is 0.5. So just pardon my writings. So 0.5 comma 0.5 is your center point. 0 comma 0 is your left topmost point. So now that we know that, we need to say that our render origin, which means based upon the movement has to happen based upon this one. And I will just start with border dot render transform, render transform, and let's say transform group, and the group contains 1 2 3 4, so 4 items. So let us just copy everything here, and let me remove it from the grid. Let me remove this as well from here. So what we are saying, from this render transform, get my translate transform. That's what we are saying here. In this loaded animation, from the render transform dot get my translate transform, and from translate transform change the property of x to this one. Let us see if this works. Okay, it didn't work as well. So let us try to take this one from the children, because it's obviously present inside a transform group. From the children 0 1 2 3, third one is my translate transform. So let us try to put that one and see. From the render transform, get my transform group and the third children and see. Now it works. So why do I need to put it in a group? Let me press F12 here and see what is render transform. Render transform. I pressed F12, but I couldn't see my render transform here. Let us save this and go back to our Visual Studio Code, and from here let us try to go. Okay, so render transform is expecting nothing but a transform. It can be a transform group, or it can be a transform, it can be anything you want. So it's basically, I believe it is kind of like a composite object. A transform can have a transformer. So let me close this, and I'm going to try something now which I have never tried before. Let me remove this. Okay, let us not do like that. Let us comment it out and take only a translate transform. So which means that a render transforms children is directly a translate transform. It doesn't have a transform group, and we don't have to go to the children. So let us remove this and see if this makes any sense. So here, let's try. Perfect. So what happened now? Earlier, our render transform had a group. So in case you want to not only modify your scale and skew, sorry, not only modify your translate X and Y, you also modify the scale, skew, rotate. Then in that case, we will be putting inside a transform group. No, in my case, I don't want them. I just need to move them from left to right. And that's the reason why inside render transform, I directly add my translate transform instead of adding it in a group. And I did not add it in a group. When I go up, let me remove the other ones. Let's make it big. Okay, so here, so the loaded animation, we are using a keyframe method now. We are not using double animation directly. Next, we will see double animation for opacity, but first we are trying using the keyframes. You don't even need to open Blend to work with keyframe, but for beginners, I believe this is the best option to start with. So we have mentioned our target name, and then the target property is the UI element, which is basically nothing but our border elements, render transform, and inside which we don't have any transform group, we directly have the translate transform, and the X value changes from 800 to 0. That is totally fine. Now this is like adding them based upon the routed event and everything, and then it works fine. Let us try to do debug to see how it goes. Let us do a quick cleanup now. Okay, so here we go, and our applications here need help. That's fine. Go to login page, sign up page, cancel, need help, login page. So whenever this page loads, it comes from the left side. That's fine. So we need to do the same for other as well. Okay. Let me clean up the unwanted ones and save this up. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a style, just like how we did for this one. I'm going to create a style, and this time key is let's say movement animation maybe. Okay, target type. Okay, first let us start with user control, and then we will move it soon. So style dot triggers. So we need a trigger, and the trigger is uh, event trigger property. Come on. So event trigger. What do we have in event trigger? Select an F12. It has something called a routed event. So you need to give the event, basically like loaded or something. So we have an event trigger. Routed event is loaded. When this loaded happens, event trigger dot actions, you need to give some kind of an actions. From this point on, you can take a reference from your existing work. If you go up, you have the storyboard here. Where is the storyboard happening? Whenever this loader happens, you are beginning the storyboard. So let us copy this and go back here. So whenever this event trigger happens, we are going to start an action. That action is begin storyboard, and a begin storyboard needs a kind of a storyboard which we already have here. So let us take this out now. go to our property, and we don't need a key anymore because you are already providing this inside a style which already has a key. So what happens here, for this user control, whenever it is loaded, we are entering into an action and we are beginning a storyboard. What is the storyboard? Storyboard is a animation keyboard storyboard, and the properties, we don't need to have first let us try something. Let us remove this border overall. When we do that, we are going to do it for the whole application, whole control itself. But we know that the control, the transform and everything is not there. So uh, oh. First, let us remove this target name and then we will come back to that. And we have this here. So this is called movement animation. So this is for your user control itself. Let us go back here. And now I know that we already have done something here, but this is all for reference. Let us remove everything. Let us remove the user control triggers and everything. Let us remove all, and even let us remove this. Okay, let us keep this transform here. uh, okay, here let us add a render transform origin, same like whatever we did for our border, we are going to do for the whole user control itself. Now just like how we did the render transform for the border, we will do user control command dot render transform. So this one, first one is translate transform. This is not a good approach because you also need to consider other transforms, but that's fine as of now. We can always improvise. Okay, so now what we have here, we have the render transform, that is fine, and then we also ensure that it has a translate transform, and the value of the translate transform we are now going to animate, that is all fine, but we also need a style. Style is equal to static resource movement animation. Let us try how it goes now. If it throws exception, we will fix the exception. Okay, so the error here is it says that it is not able to find the resource name movement animation. Why? It's a very reasonable one because uh, after this particular line or initialization only we are trying to set we are trying to set this resources. So basically, the static resource which is coming from LCRD itself was loaded after we try to apply the style. So this is that's the reason why it doesn't work. To resolve that, what we do after the resources are loaded, okay, after the resources are loaded, we call in user control dot style, and now we cannot directly set the value like this, right? So we need to have the binding directly. So binding IntelliSense will not show that, don't worry. Binding, close it, and source is equal to now static resource movement animation. Now let us remove it from here. So what happened is before the movement animation itself comes from LCRD, and LC before LCRD is loaded, we are trying to apply the style, and it said that movement animation is not found. Now after this is loaded and we are reaching this point style, we are then loading the movement animation. So it should probably work. Let us try now. Okay, it worked. That's fine. So let's go back to the going. Where am I? Okay, so go login page. Okay, now that we know that it is fine, what I do, just copy this, including the transform. Let me copy this, or I can do something else as well. Take this render transform directly from here, go into my movement animation, and I know that this is for user control. So setters property render transform origin, and value is equal to, okay, now that is done, and setter property render transform, and the value is setter dot value. And let's go back to our login XAML and copy this render transform, which is my translate transform, right? So I don't need to give render transform again. Go into my LCRD and translate transform. This is my value. Go back here, remove this, go up, it's already removed. So now it is generic, the whole item is generic. So if you want to make some modifications, we can directly make here. So all we now know is we have something called movement animation, which needs to be loaded like this. Take this, go to helper page, get down here after the resources are loaded, apply, go to sign up page, get down here after the resources are loaded, save. Let us try now. Now the same style which we have put in our resource dictionary should be accessible by all the three controls. Start, I need help. Go to login page, sign in, it failed, sign in, it failed. There was sign up. Okay, maybe we need to increase the speed. This doesn't make sense. 0.5 seconds. Let us make it zero point 0.2, and instead of 880, let us make it 600. I will also add some other animations now, but let us just let's start and stop. Start and stop. No, stop and start. There we go. So it's fast now. Help. There is some kind of error which is happening. I couldn't figure out. Sign up is fast. Cancel is fast. Need help is fast. Go to login page is fast. Okay, so these things are fast. But the leaving should also be there. But at present, this is fine. I believe this is okay for me. There is one more thing that I wanted to do before I go there. Let me close this. Opacity. The opacity should also change. So whenever this loaded happens, I also need to change my opacity. So the opacity, just like how I have a begin storyboard, I'm going to add one more storyboard now. Begin storyboard and see if it is accepted. Okay, because usually since this says actions, if I press F12, it should be some kind of a collection. So it's a trigger action collection, so which means that I can have more than one values inside. If it is not a collection, then you cannot have two values inside, but that's fine. We have one more storyboard. Let us create one more storyboard. The first storyboard is move from left to right, and second storyboard is change opacity. This time I'm not going to use any kind of blender present. I will just say start storyboard, and this is going to be double animation. You want to see what are the animations that are available. You have animation using keyframes, that what we saw, double animation, and you have color animation, boolean animation, color. You know what? I don't know many of these ones. I have never tried many of these. I have tried point animation, I have tried double animation keys, and nothing else. So I don't know how many of them work. So let us stick to what we know the best, double animation. I would double animation using path. Double animation. I would suggest you to do some research and find the different animation, but the concepts are all same. Based upon the loaded or a visibility change or some property, even you can have your own custom property, like you set some property, the property changes, you can modify something. So that's totally up to you. So just do some trial and error process and find out. So double animation from and to will be there. So let us just go F12 and see the from and to, and it should also have some kind of it should have from value and to value. So what is the one that you are going to do and how long that will take to achieve it? That's the duration here. Let me close it. And what is the property that we are going to do? So for that to happen, we need to have double animation. Target is not here. So we don't have the target property here, but if you see here, even double animation using keyframes also doesn't have this. So we have storyboard.target property. So we do the same. Storyboard is an attached property of a template. We are setting it directly inside the style. So you will never have the option to set the target name. And from let's say it should start from 10. and before that opacity value, I believe it should go from 0 to 1. So it's a percentage. So let's say 0.1, and it should reach 1.0, and duration is, I don't know what is the seconds. Is it milliseconds? Or maybe the duration could be something like this. So let us try this one. So this is along with this movement, we are also going to change this. Now I'm going to make it 0.3 and 0.3 here. Let us try now. Now, along with our normal animation, we should also have opacity, like the movement animation X translation. We should also have opacity added now. Did okay? I know that we are not seeing it, so I will just say 4 seconds, just to see whether the animation works or not. And if you are sure that it works, then that is totally fine. Wow, that works. You see, it took 4 seconds. Whoa, 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 whoa. Why did it do 2 times? It did twice. Something is wrong, so it was doing it twice. Okay, that's totally fine. So, which means it is working, but let us do it in once again. So, even though we load it in 0.3, we just take some microseconds to or milliseconds to show the opacity. Let's try again. That's fine. Need help? Need help did twice. Login page is once. Sign up is once. For some reason, my load was happening twice. Maybe the problem is somewhere inside the code, but I don't know where. Let us not focus on that one, but this is how we do it. We just take the animations and put them all together. Anyhow, so what I suggest you is, if you are going to start from scratch, the animation part, start with blend, so you can get it from view, design in blend, and once you get the hang of it, like how the keyframe works and everything, then you can move to directly start writing double animations or something. And not only this, you also have lot of easing properties. Where is this easing function? Okay, easing function. Let us set the easing function, or maybe we can directly set it via the property. No, it's not there. Easing function. So easing function, we have lot of easing functions. Hmm. Where can I find the easing functions? Okay, how do I find that? We do the usual. We do the usual. Go to easing function. You must Microsoft. Okay, that's the first thing. You have backies, bouncies, circles, cubic keys, exponentials, elastic keys. I think this is oscillating back and forth. So I will take elastic keys. So what does this elastic keys does? What is the property that is needed? Elastic keys. That is an example as well. Elastic keys. It's an easing function. I need to set the easing function with the elastic keys with oscillations 3 and springiness 1. When we have something like this, we just copy it. They also have target name. That's wow. Okay, because it's not inside a style, it is directly calling inside the rectangle. But if you are going to do it inside a style, as far as I know, you will not be able to set a target name when you are inside a style. But maybe I could be wrong. Login page. LCRD. Okay. So easing function, let us set double animation dot easing function. Elastic function. So let's not name my function here. I don't need any kind of name. Oscillations is 3. Okay, why not 5 oscillations? Or okay, 4. And the springiness is 1. What is springiness? Okay, easing mode is ease out. Let's try now. As I always repeat, the key takeaway from this video should be you should know how to achieve the function. It's like you don't have to remember all the syntax and you don't have to remember all the function names. That you can always search, unless you are preparing for an interview where the people are going to ask you questions, which in my opinion is totally wrong. Uh, 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 Okay, I understood. Actually, we should not be setting the easing animation for the opacity. Then what happens is the opacity value will move from ease in and out. The whole easing function should be set inside our keyframe here. So double animation using keyframes dot easing repeat behavior. Why do you have repeat behavior? Repeat behavior is wrong. I should not have repeat behavior. So you know what? Uh, Let us remove this double animation itself. Let us try to set it up using, sorry, double animation using keyframes. Let us directly set up a double animation like this. This time, double animation and storyboard target property. Already have the property here. Storyboard target property is here, yes, and from 0 to from value, right? Of value should be minus 600 to 0, and duration is 0.3 seconds, and let me remove all these things. Perfect. So what I'm doing here is, let us not do using key animations. Let us directly do this, and we have now async function, and let's take this. Where is my async function? I removed the async function. Okay. Yeah, what is the async? We were looking at spring. No, it's bounces. I'm not sure if it was bouncies, but that's fine. We have bounces, bounciness. That's it. Two things, right? Bounces and bounciness. And bounces is equal to 4, and bounciness is equal to maybe 1. And let us try to check. So now this property value, like x value should go to 0 and then it should bounce front and back. Bouncing is basically it will always be in the lower end, so it will be bouncing. It works, but bounciness is wrong. Maybe I have two bounces, and the time taken to reach is 1 second, and I will take three bounces, and let's try now. Let's restart. It's bouncing, but the bounciness is too much. So let's make, if I'm not wrong, this should be some kind of um, percentage value. So if we put 0.3, so the bounciness, the capacity to bounce is at 30%. So it won't bounce until the top. Bad. So, we are here. So maybe the problem is with this value. So the bounciness has to be more higher. I don't know how that makes any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. So bounciness, if you throw a ball on the floor, what happens? It just touches the floor and then it goes up and again touches the floor, which means that the end value, it will not go beyond the end value. That's the whole idea behind bounciness. Then what about this one, elasticity case? Elasticity means your end value is 0. It can also go in the minus. I need an oscillation, so I will take this elastic case again. Bounciness means it will not go below the 0, but it will the lowest value will be 0. It will reach 0 and then go up to 10 and 5 and 4, and it's basically bouncing. But if I set elasticity, it is like the elastic, as the name suggests. It will go left and right. Let's say 4, and the springiness, let's say 7, and ease mode is out. And let's try. So it should be like, it should reach 0. Instead of reaching 0, it should go up to maybe like 10 and then come back to 9, low, 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 and then it should oscillate. Perfect. Don't do it twice. Okay. Maybe the elasticity is more. Let us try to set this elastic springiness to 10 and see if it is fine. So elastic ease is basically, as the name suggests, it's an elastic. It oscillates. And bounciness, as the name suggests, it is bouncing. Okay, that's fine. I don't know how this makes any sense at all. Like, this higher the springiness value, lower the spring, lower the. I don't know. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, so this is it. I think by now you should have gotten a better idea about how to deal with animations. As usual, the source code is already in the GitHub. You can get the source code and take a look into the file. And as I suggested before, start with uh, animations using the keyframes in Blend, and then once you get the hang of it, move to directly writing them. Thank you.